finest. I call him the Duke. He's out here from Baton Rouge. And I'm glad he's here because I've been trying to research some recipes about a very common meal addition down south, but not so common out here in California. We're in the Burbank Hills right now at a friend's house, and we are checking out their kitchen system and seeing what they've got in the spice rack. We picked up some mustard greens, and we want to find out the exact recipe that someone would use. Everybody in my family, they've either passed away or they bought greens by can. Is that unbelievable or what?
That's not good.
It's unbelievable. But my grandmother she'd slap you upside the head if you came into her house with a can of greens.
And she should.
She should, absolutely. So here's the deal. We're going to kind of go back and forth and find out our family recipes. I've talked to my siblings. Nobody knows how to make greens. But everybody loves them, so let's figure out what we're going to do. We came up with the recipe. Part of this is Bino's, part of this is mine. And we're going to work today with about, according to this, we're going to have 2 pounds of mustard grease. Now, I bought the kind that come in the bag. Sorry about that. I'm going to rinse them, and we're going to make sure that there's no sand or grit in there.
That's full disclosure, because in the day, we'd go and pick them out of the garden.
Pick them out of the garden, and then you definitely had to make sure that you washed them, got the little animals and creatures off of that. So that's going to be our key. We're not going to focus on that too much. But basically, we've got 2 pounds of mustard greens. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt, so 1 teaspoon per pound. I've got some onion powder here, about a teaspoon, a little bit heavier than a teaspoon. And I've got 1 tablespoon of garlic powder. So, Mina, what do you think? Am I on the right track here? What's your experience in? You still like greens, even though it's 2019 or so?
Oh, if you're, I'm from Louisiana and Texas, and they're a staple food. So everybody eats them. Collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens. People like greens, and they're good for you.
Absolutely. There's a lot more greens than what people kind of think of with greens. Almost anything can be made into greens. Mm-hmm. I like energy shakes made with kale, and I found out that you can even make greens out of kale. Same kind of recipe. A little bit crunchier, not so soft, easy to get soft.
Some people don't like those because they have a more stringent or pungent or bitter taste, but...
Well, that's why I'm adding that little bit of sugar. So I'm going to add a teaspoon of sugar, even though these are mustard greens, because they work really well to lower the acidity of some of those other greens. Tablespoon of garlic, teaspoon of onion, a little bit of salt. We're going to cook the bacon first. We got some really nice bacon from the butcher down the street. It is, what was that bacon? Was it jalapeno?
Jalapeno red pepper.
Jalapeno red pepper all over the top of the crust. We're going to cook that in the pot that we're going to actually simmer the greens in. Remove the extra fat and get all the grease off of the bacon. Put the greens in there with these particular ingredients, and then put the bacon back. We've got smoked ham hocks, right?
Ham hocks.
All right, so unusual dish maybe in California, maybe not. But the butcher didn't give me any instructions on what to do with these ham hocks. They're smoked. We're going to add 2 of them. We got 3 ham hocks. Gives us 1 left over to put in the pocket and have a late night snack out here in California. So in outdoor cooking world, we're ready to cook some greens. We're glad you could be with us. Do you know what you say?
Thanks for coming. If you haven't tried greens, you need to watch this, and then you don't have to follow this recipe. We like it a little bit hotter, so we're going to put some cayenne at the end and some red peppers.
Oh, that's right. So I'm going to add a little red pepper flake just for coloring, and I think we got it covered. Here's to figuring out how to make greens. And make sure you bookmark this recipe because, like I said, this is going to be, we're finding it more difficult and more difficult to find out how to make them.
And here's to you trying greens.
Trying greens. They're going to be good. All right, so we're all set up here. We've got this, this is my big old pasta pot here. We're heating this up. We're going to heat it up to get it going here. Tell us about this meat selection you picked out there, Vino.
Well, we forgot to say if you're vegan or vegetarian, you don't have to use meat products in your greens. You can flavor them any way you want, and they come out really good. So, you know, I'm not vegan.
Concerned with vegans and vegetarians?
I'm always concerned with vegans and vegetarians and everybody in the world. So.
Go right ahead.
But we like meat products, so we didn't want to overdo the bacon. So we have this is. Like we had mentioned earlier, this is with red peppers and jalapenos, so it gives it a little bit of bite. And these are your ham hocks here that are going to add a really good flavor to it. And they should break apart a little bit in there and just add some texture. And whatever, but it's going to be really tasty.
I understand. I've read a few recipes, and they say after you add these little pig's feet things, or I guess it's the area above the pig's hoof or hooves, they're going to soften up. And some recipes say take them out after about 20 minutes or a half hour and start to slice them, and the meat will come off. And you add that back and you remove the bone.
It's probably so that they can have the meat free floating in with the greens and add more flavor.
It also could be some of the marrow from the bones is going to add some richness to the greens and give it some of that meat flavor.
That's absolutely right.
I think so. All right, so let's get started with the bacon, because we're going to add the ham hocks after the greens come in. So I'm going to cook these are thick cut slices of bacon, and I'm going to cook them for 8 minutes on one side and flip them over in 8 minutes. I'm cooking them on low, extremely low, because the best flavor from bacon is when there's no burnt portions of bacon on the bacon. Would you not agree?
It depends on what you're making, but in this dish you probably don't want it too crisp.
All right,
you just want it cooked.
Let me turn the heat down. We'll do a little time-lapse trick, and we'll be right back when this bacon is done.
It's starting to smell really good. Wish you were here with us.
All right, so these have been cooking for about 8 minutes on either side. I flipped them over. We're going to get them out of the pot that we're going to cook our greens in. Let's put them on. Let's put the. There you go. And let's put them in a paper towel. There's a paper towel there behind you. I'm just going to lay these on this paper towel. And if you do me a favor, you can cut them into little chunks to go inside. We're going to put them back in the greens for all those vegans. I'm sorry, we're going to have a lot of pork in this particular dish. But that's the way it's got to be. The interior of my pot here, I'm going to drain a little bit of that fat out. But as you can see, there's some of the seasoning from the bacon itself, and it's going to add to the flavor. I'm just going to dab some of this bacon fat off the bottom. So, Bino, how much water do you think I should add? Because you were telling me that these are going to reduce.
Well, we're going to just start off with a cup of water per pound, and what you're going to notice is when we bring the greens over for you to see that they're really voluminous. There's a lot of volume to greens, but they really cook down. So we're not going to start with adding too much water and then have to try to ladle some out. We'll just start with a cup of water per pound, see if we've got it covered. If we don't, then we'll cover it.
So you think I should add them now and increase the heat, or should we add the seasoning first? What do you think?
I would go ahead and start cooking down my greens. That's how I like to do them, and then put the seasonings
on top. Okay.
But how do you like to?
I am not the expert. I'm not from the great state of Louisiana, so I don't really.
Don't forget Texas.
In Texas, so I'm learning as we're going along here, and I'm also trying to recapture the historic relationship to the American nation and greens. People don't just eat greens down south, do they? They eat greens all over the Midwest. They'd probably love them more in California if they try them every once in a while.
Well, and don't forget, greens are like any other thing. It's how your family did them is a lot of times how you learn, and then you just have to branch out and see if you like other things too.
All right, in that case, I'm going to start ladling one of these leaves. These are mustard greens. I've washed them. I'm going to put in 1 pound right now because I want to see how well they fit inside my pasta.
See, that looks like a lot, but
it's going to basically turn into probably a quarter of that. I would say 20% of this. Once all of the moisture leaches out, it starts to accept that the seasoning. Now they're not going to fit. Both pounds aren't going to fit, but what we are going to do is we're going to let these reduce, and then we're going to come back and add the seasoning. Let's put the other pound on top. And you get like a blend of very tender greens, but there's a little crunch in the top ones that don't sit on the fire that long.
Right, and these greens, they're going to depend on the variety of greens that you're cooking, or even the quality of the greens. If you get mustard greens, you may not need to cook them quite as long as we need to with these, or you might have to cook them longer. It just depends. You want them you know, you want them pliable. You don't.
All right, so what's the next step? Are we going to add that bacon on top of this, or do we wait until they...
Let's get the water boiling and let it come down a little bit, and then we'll put the bacon in and the seasonings.
All right, so we're going to wait for... As soon as the water boils, I want you to watch this, because these greens are right about here, but when it starts boiling, I'm going to open this pot up in the next segment, and you're going to see whether they reduce or not. So put the lid on.
Put the lid on.
Put the lid on, and we'll be right back on Outdoor Cooking.
Don't watch it. It won't boil.
Because it's a watch pot.
Yeah, we've been at this for about 7 or 8 minutes, and you can see the amount of water that we've put in there. Most of them on the bottom have already reduced with just the amount of water that we had. And we're getting ready to go ahead and season these up, and then we'll add the other greens on top and add our other water and let it reduce down and cook. Don't overcook them, because you cook all the good nutrients and
That's
vegetables.
true. You know. So one of the things that I did read when I was researching some of these recipes is the reason that it's important to add pork or something with fat on it is because it actually helps to keep the creatines in the water. So the creatines are the nutritional value of all the green leafy greens and the carrots and the orange vegetables as well. If you boil them,
I just like the taste. I didn't know that. I learned something new.
If you boil them, you're going to lose that nutrition. And so the problem is, those people will they'll strain the greens, and they'll leave all of that. They'll just pour that water out. That water in the Midwest, up around Chicago, all the way down to Mississippi, is called pot liquor. There's different ways that people pronounce it. I've always heard it called pot liquor. And it's essentially, without pot liquor, you've lost the nutrition of your greens, but you've also lost an amazing flavor to pour over shrimp or add to any of those soups and those wonderful things that they make down on the bayou. So we do not want to damage the pot liquor.
Well, it's funny you talked about that, because I didn't tell you, I talked with my mother earlier today, and she said when they were kids down on the river in Louisiana, they always had the pot liquor, so
that's the stuff.
Don't waste the good stuff.
Let's see if we can recreate the pot liquor. So you're going to add the bacon on top.
Okay, you want to add it now?
I'm going to let me grab my camera here. I'm going to scoot it around without getting in too much trouble. I'm going to just try to get you a closer shot. And you go ahead and...
And I wish you could smell this bacon. It's got, like we said, some red pepper and jalapeno that added a kind of unique taste to it.
And that's starting to smell fantastic. So that's I can smell the bacon and the greens mixed together.
Oh yeah, it's if you actually do cook this for your family or for yourself and your friends, you're gonna really enjoy this.
All right, let's throw in the rest of them seasoning, because we can always stir it and swish it around, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna give me a second here. I'm gonna just twist this camera around. Okay. So we've got, what did we decide on the salt? Maybe 2 teaspoons of salt, or should we do 1? And if it's not salty enough for you, we'll add it later.
Well, that sounds okay. We're going to do, on your salt here, you had 2 teaspoons on there.
Let's do 1, and then like you say, you'll taste it and tell me whether it needs more.
Yeah, and the thing with salt is you can always add more, but you can't take it out.
That's
and
true.
The bacon has some salt.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's don't over salt it. And we've got, we've already measured out. We've already measured out our onion powder.
1 teaspoon.
Yep, that's 1 teaspoon of onion powder.
I would highly suggest to use a fresh onion if you have one. I just did not have one. Our friend's spice rack here had some onion powder, but no onions in the fridge.
I bet some little pearl onions in this would be great.
Absolutely. I think you can dress this up any way that you feel would make it more visually appealing as well as tasty.
And this is some good garlic powder here, which is a tablespoon instead of a teaspoon. In good old California, if you've never been to Gilroy Garlic Festival, you need to go. I've been.
No commercials on Outdoor Cooking World, unless we get a bump.
And then we'll just make sure to get this blended in.
And what about 1 teaspoon of sugar? I know you've been arguing with me about whether to put sugar in there or not, but just for the sake of argument, let's see if we can have, how about a half a teaspoon of sugar?
Okay, we'll do a half a teaspoon of sugar.
And the reason I say that, anything that's salty, anything that is acidic, that vinegar tastes good on, it's always going to be more flavorful if you counterbalance the salt with a little sugar. It's not going to make sweet greens out of it, it's just basically going to counteract the bitterness. And
some places, they do make their greens sweet. I don't care for them sweet. I like the natural taste of greens better.
Alright, so while you're stirring that, we're going to move on to the next segment here, and I'll go cook them up. And I'm going to go grab that other pound of greens.
I'm going to put the rest of the greens in and boil them down so you can see how much they've reduced already. We've already added the spices, and I'm going to go ahead and add the second pound in with the second cup of water.
I already put 2 cups of water in there when I started it. Does it look like it needs an extra cup of water?
At this point, with what we have, I would say we need to add some more water.
Okay. Most importantly, you would rather have more water than to run out of water and mess these greens up. They're kind of raising them on the bottom. And
yeah, you don't want to scald these greens, and they're, we're not going to saute them. So just try to avoid that. Now, actually what I'm going to do, I'm not going to mix them in. I'm going to let the ones on the bottom cook a little bit. They have the heat. The steam's going to come up and kind of bring these down. Then we'll stir them in just a few minutes.
Let's have the ham hocks, don't you think?
Yeah, we can do that now.
Because they're the ones that have to come up to 160 degrees. So even though these are smoked ham hocks, the safety warning is we've got to bring the middles up to about 160 degrees. I'm sneaking in a couple of these red pepper flakes because they're my favorite.
Yeah, they're good.
And then I'm just going to dust it a little bit. Even when these greens cook down and they start to lose all of their moisture, this is a nice little visual appeal to the finished greens. Do you want to add some cayenne pepper?
Yeah, I'm going to put cayenne in these because we both like cayenne, and cayenne is so very good for you. And if you've never used cayenne, you can try it. Just try a little bit, or you can even cook the greens and then try it after that. Now, some people want to cook and put too much heat in there, and then it's so hot you don't enjoy it.
Absolutely, that is not. If you're not used to it, don't go overboard with the cayenne or the red pepper flakes, for that matter.
That's right, and I like heat in mine to bring out flavor, not to brag about how hot I made my greens. But I have probably there about 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, and we may even add more for us because we like it. We can do that at the end.
All right, what's our time period on the actual finishing this off?
Now we're going to let this simmer for at least 10 minutes, stir it around. Maybe come back in, check on these ham hocks, see if they need to be split like you talked about earlier.
And then you can actually turn this off and leave these on the eye for a couple, 4 or 5 hours, and
you can just let them.
The season's going to even meld even further into the actual greens.
Kind of like when the crawfish suck in the flavors.
There you go. So the big question is, about an hour more, you think?
Yeah, probably so.
All right, so let's call this an hour. We'll be back on the last segment. We're going to plate this and show you what all of your wonderful work is going to come to, and your friends and family will be enjoying good old-fashioned Southern, Midwest, Michigan to Mississippi mustard greens.
Mustard greens.
Okay, this is the finished product here. We've got the greens. I took the skin off of the ham hock. Tell us about these extra pieces here. I've got some Heinz apple cider vinegar, but you suggested that we try a little jalapeno peppers, deli sliced, limoncello.
Yeah, down south they usually have trapeze or some other brand peppers, but I couldn't find them here in California, so we thought we would just kind of make our own with the vinegar, or just try the jalapenos and see how that came out.
Throw a couple in there just to finish this off and see what it tastes like.
Oh yeah, I bet it's going to be good.
You put them on top like that, or you mix them in a little bit.
Just have it for a bite.
Either way.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a little bit of this apple cider vinegar. Just flavor the one side, so you can try it with and without. And grab a fork, Mr. Duke.
Thank you.
Let's give this a taste and see what it tastes like. Oh my goodness, I love it.
That is delicious.
Let's try some with one of the pepperoncinis.
That is great.
It's great. Is it good?
Ooh, that's good.
As I was going to say, not only is it good, but it's ooh, that's good. We'll flash the recipe up for you all. Thanks for joining us on Outdoor Cooking Room.
And if you haven't tried greens, you need to try this.
They're healthy, they taste wonderful, and I highly recommend them.